Computer. Good morning, Pat.
Hey Chris, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be with you this morning and Holy Compost. And we have this beautiful poem that you've presented. I wonder if you could read it and then we could talk about it.
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. The title of the poem is Storm Chaser, and it is written by a woman online whose name is Romy Weiser. That's Wycer, Weiser. Okay. Oops, I just goofed it up. Dang. Hold on.
Just take your time.
Jeez. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. So again, the title is Storm Chaser. I know you want me to stay in the shallows, but there's nothing real there for me anymore. I want depth, devotion, and undeniable truth. I see light in the shadows where others are spellbound. I can't stay in a life where there's nowhere to breathe. I've endured 1,000 mini deaths to meet this moment, each time rising stronger in belief and softer in trust. It's all or nothing now. Awakened in a world whose heart is split open by reckless hands, but whose healing emerges from enlightened words. Storms still run wild in the hidden corners of my soul, birthing new stars to fill the hollow void of loss. Deep promises made in the dark, now blooming wild and burning brightly. Deep faith found in the unknown, lighting the way for boundless grace. Nothing will change until I do. And in my readiness to receive, I'm changing everything.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
receiving thing is so huge for me.
Mm.
And I resist it. I identified with the resisting of the receiving of grace, the receiving of well, grace is the
Comfort.
comfort, yep. Inspiration,
Mm.
the
Mm.
receiving of gratitude, the
How
receiving.
about the receiving of not knowing? The receiving
Mm,
of not knowing. Oh, that's a
that's
toughie.
yeah, but I mean that's probably one of the more beautiful pieces of receiving. So this sort of sets off a little avalanche for me uh, of not knowing. Not knowing has become sort of a, a a gravity center for me.
Mm. Mm.
And I hear
Tell me
about,
about that.
well, I hear about religious doctrine or religious anything, which is mostly man-made or human-made. And I think God sort of, squeezes in to the cracks in the surface sometimes, but not knowing is really where I find my huge expansive space, um my um my receiving the spirit in a completely ununderstandable, the peace that passes understanding. um
Mm.
this is
Mm.
unknowable for me, and that's
Mm.
a beautiful thing that it's unknowable. So
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
hear about, like I was listening to the Matthew Fox that thing that you sent me, and how he
Mhm.
was, he was rejected in some way from the Catholic Church and became an Episcopal.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, good riddance. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that the Catholic Church has brought to the human experience and the spiritual experience, but there's a lot of, every church has its garbage,
Mm. Mhm.
its
Mhm.
obstacles, and
Mhm.
but the unknowing is a realm that if I can get there, and this poem just delivered me there, to the realm of not knowing. um
Mm.
it's such a gift. It makes me, it just fills me with gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing what you're saying and agree with it. The other line that's just before that, in my readiness to receive, I'm changing everything, is the line, nothing will change until I do. Well, gee willikers, boy, I hope I don't have to wait that long. I may never get there. So that's a very strong message in this prose. Nothing will change until I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that makes me think of how, I was going to say, powerful we are. And I guess I'll stick with that.
Mm.
So Desmond Tutu, or I'm not sure who the author, the original author was, but he said what we fear most is our own power. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think, yeah, I do fear my own power. If I were to surrender my heart to God completely, if I were to surrender my heart to grace, um, things would change. And um, would I be ready for that change? Would I, or could I stand that much goodness? Could I
Mm.
stand,
Mm.
could I tolerate that much shifting in my reality? Um,
Could I tolerate love?
yeah, because, well, for one thing, the love could be a change. If there's anything I've learned in the past year since changing my silverware drawer to a different location in the kitchen, it is that change is contrary to the ego's comfort.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the ego will sort of silently battle that until, like,
Mm.
it just never gives up. It doesn't have any
Right.
exhaustion point.
No.
Change is the enemy of the ego. And so,
Mm.
um yeah. So, for people who don't know my story about the silverware drawer, we used to have it in a place on the kitchen counter where people used to always stand to make stuff, right? And I'd always have to say, "Excuse me, I need a fork." So I
Mm.
put it on the end of the counter where nobody stands, and now nobody stands in front of it. Well, come to find out that, for this was last February, so what, 15 months ago or something like that. I'm still going to the old drawer. 50, and this is like what, 5 times, 10 times a day. I don't know how many times I go to the silverware drawer. And it's turned
Yeah.
into
Yeah. Yeah.
a spiritual truth for me, that um the brain gets, maybe hardwired is right, maybe it's wrong, but it's like hardwired in its habits, and it will not let go of that. It
Mm.
just
Mm.
it just has a grip and a stickiness, like Pema Chodron would say, a
Mm-hmm.
stickiness that it
Mm-hmm.
that it won't release. And so when I'm
Yeah.
trying to change my spiritual life, this is the obstacle that I'm up against.
Totally. I mean, just think of the charge between silverware drawer habit and the charge of, oh, they ignored me again. They didn't recognize me. I mean, the silverware drawer is like what? The grain of sand compared to the boulder or up at the top of the mountain. I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, creatures of habit, and to break habit, particularly habit that is supercharged by fear. I mean, yeah, you don't like to keep getting the silverware drawer wrong, but I don't think it fills you with fear. But if somebody that you love or care about as a child ignores your need for love, that reverberation lasts time, and we continue to look for it. We continue to say, "Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is again. Oh boy." So what is our solution to our how do we love ourselves in such a way that we alleviate or quiet that voice that says you're unlovable or whatever it says. I haven't found doing it on my own very successful. So sharing with another is truly helpful. And then I think it's what you mentioned earlier, a surrendering to this pain, or loving this pain, or something. I'm not quite sure.
Well,
Nothing will change until I do.
Yeah, change is a veritable opponent, and so I've had to kind of experiment with different forms of change in my life, and I'm not real good with knowing something that is bad or is not working and not trying to change it. So I'm sort of like, when I realize that something isn't working or something needs to be changed, I am just going to figure that out. I am going to figure that out if it's the last thing I do. I'm just not real good with not finding solutions to things, especially emotional, spiritual, relational things that aren't working. So
Right.
I mean, I've never done the journal thing, but I think it might be helpful for me to do it. Like at the end of the day, or maybe 3 times a day with every meal, writing down a journal of the positive and the negative messages that I was giving myself, or the punitive or supportive messages that I was giving myself through the day. One of the things I try to, as you know, I've mentioned this many times before, is to observe my thoughts and then question them, and sometimes write them down. That's been, I mean, it was a very prolonged, at the beginning, very prolonged project. I had to work at this. I think after a couple of months of observing my thoughts through the day, I started to see a little bit of peace of mind or serenity that came from that. And then maybe after 2 years, I started seeing a dramatic difference in my just in my peace of mind. There was the calmness about me that came over me that I was not familiar with, but very, very welcomed.
Nice.
So those are just a couple of
Yeah, yeah. I think it has to do with what they call the inner story or narrative or dialogue that we have sort of ongoing, that it can be changed. It can be changed. Um, I definitely had that experience myself, Chris, when I got sober. Same kind of thing. I, you know, a thought came one day, oh, look, you're doing things for yourself that help you feel better, or
Mm.
some kind of thought like that. It was like so bizarre to have that thought, to give myself credit for addressing something that totally needed to be addressed. um
How long do
so I
you
hear what
think,
you're saying.
how long do you think you were in the program before you started seeing some changes in the 12-step program?
I'd say it was anywhere between 3 and 6 months,
Uh-huh.
something like that. Um, yeah, I mean, in other words, there was a consciousness or an awareness of being involved in my own life. Before that, it seemed like I was running on I was running on fear. I was running on fear. And I slowly began to, quote, run on love. And that has been an up and down thing. And even now, as you well know, it can be some days a real hit or miss thing, depending upon what I'm chewing on. Again, what if that inner narrative that, by the way, I don't believe is ever totally erased from our psyche. It certainly can be quieted down, it can be healed, but it continues to be a place where one, at least in my experience, I can be triggered by a certain course of events can happen, and then I'll be like, oh wow, there it is. Woo, it's got me again. And I know what I need to do. Whether I do it or not is another story. And
So
what I need to do, yep.
what do you need to do? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it gets hard to verbalize. Certainly, what I need to do is to begin some sort of self-care, whatever that might be. Like, I've found that going out for a walk to be um, a way that I calm my psyche, and then my spirit has a better chance of saying, you're okay, you're a good kid, so action. That's the byword. You have to take action. You can't sit and hope it's gonna fall on your lap. And let's face it, when one has been when one gets down, depressed, whatever the word might be, it's much harder to push through that. But push we must. Now, do we have to do that alone? No, we can call on something. Here's the strange thing about calling on something. If you're giving it what's the word? If it's not sincere and you're just giving it,
Lip
that's
service.
a term. Lip service. Thank you. Lip service. What a great term, lip service. Let me give you some lip service. Boo, 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 boo. But if you're sincere and you're almost for me, it feels like an implosive kind of feeling, like it's going like, whoa, I can't push it back anymore. It's getting me. Then if I extend my if I am able to quiet my ego a bit, and that's not easy. And just say simply, please help me, God, please help me, please help me. Well, maybe not in that split second does it happen, but it isn't too long before the phone rings. It's Chris.
Well,
Hey, Chris.
and
Whatever.
the thing I've noticed is that if I ask for help, if I ask God for help,
Mhm.
I have to engage, following the request, I have to engage in a form of listening that is very hard to describe. I have very little practice at it. I don't see it talked about or modeled anywhere in my life.
Mhm.
And I was born into a family of, my mother went to seminary, my father was a minister. We had, all of their friends were ministers. I was bathed, I was marinated in the church, and most of it was most of it was good.
Love it. I love
So,
it.
but I never, the idea of listening for God was never addressed in quite that way. And I'll tell you, the experience I get when I'm listening for God is I can't describe it. It's number one, it's a new experience for me. So here I am. I'm no spring chicken, and I'm having a new experience. It also opens my whole consciousness. You know, listening. How do you listen for something that has no noise? You know, how do you how do you listen to something that you have no idea what form it's going to take? Is it going to be from a bird? Is it going to be a call from a friend? Is it going to be an inspiration that just kind of bubbles up from inside? Is it going to be I mean, it could have any form. Somebody could call you, you could hear a clap of thunder, or you could see the sun shining on the trees. I mean, it could come in any form. But I'm having to listen for that. And the listening is, I mean, it's probably one of the biggest spiritual gifts I've ever received, is the it's not an ability. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Just spiritual listening has been probably one of the biggest gifts of my whole life.
Right, right. And thank you for sharing that, Chris. That was really wonderful. Envisioning all the different ways in which the Spirit can speak to us. And then the other thing is, we use the word, like I just did, speak and listen. And it isn't, you're right, it isn't, okay, it isn't God saying, okay, got you covered, you're going to be okay, you know, 2 steps to the left, you know, go down this, you know, whatever. It's not that, number one. And I think we have to shift out of that sort of mindset. And the other thing is the listening is not with the ears. And I think we can be, you know, hoping it comes through there, and it doesn't. It comes through, all of our senses are engaged, including, I'm going to say, our heart. You know, if the heart is crying out and and we've allowed the heart to cry and open, the chances of quote in quotes hearing the Spirit speak, it goes up. You know, I mean, if the ego is saying, you know, yeah, I don't know, that's a lot of hogwash, you know, whatever, you know, like, come on, we got something to do here. We don't have time to wait around waiting for something to tell us what to do. Wow. So yeah, we're kind of as modern people, we're really up against all of the cultural factors that we live and that mold us. So yeah, of course, I mean, you know, and you know, I feel confident that you have been guided in many, many ways over the years to sustain you and to continuing to open your heart, because you're like, Oh, it's that. Yeah, it's that. That's when it happens, when I'm opening my heart. We can start making, connecting the dots. Then we can say, oh, opening my heart. Okay, okay. And through meditation, of course, is one of those ways. I think nature, like you've mentioned, and I have observed and experienced nature, big time, big time. We're away from the cultural heaviness in nature. And, I think that's why the indigenous people had such a great connection with the Great Spirit. They were out there. They weren't in cement buildings.
Well, now that you brought up indigenous people, when you were talking a few minutes ago, and I want to come back to this, but I want to address that too. We talk about a lot about the Ubuntu tribe, which had a custom of when someone made a mistake or broke a rule, instead of punishing them, they would call them to the center of the group, and everybody in the community would talk about how much they admired them or how much they loved them. And, this is the way, this is what we need to do with school shootings. This is what we need to do with all the horrible things that are happening in our world. We need to surround these people with love before they do the school shooting.
Right.
Right. We need to get help for them. We need to get community for them.
Yeah.
And this is what the 12 steps do. So you go into this group broken, barely hanging on to life, defeated, in a haze of fear and separation. And within 3 to 6 months, as you were saying, and I had the same experience in Alateen, 3 to 6 months, life is changing. You are surrounded by people who care about you. You don't, in the groups, there's complete anonymity. So all you know is first names. You don't know anything about what they do for a living or where they live or the car they drive or any of those stupid external things. All you know of, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right. And all you know about them is their struggle and how they coped with it. There's because they share their experience, strength, and hope. Experience, strength, and hope. Experience, strength, and hope. So the 12 steps and the Ubuntu have so much in common. We all need,
they truly do.
We all need the community. We all need to know how the community feels about us. I mean, how many times have you had somebody say something about you that was very supportive or built you up in some kind of way that you had no idea that they felt that way, and you had no idea that anybody would see you in that light. We need that.
We do need it. We do need it. And about the, not to get stuck on the school shootings, because it's just so hard to talk about that stuff and to imagine it and think about it. But inevitably after a shooting, they'll say that this particular kid, people were noticing these things. They were noticing them dropping back, and they could sense that something was going on, and inevitably, very little gets done. And so I think that there's probably programs now in existence. I'm gonna hope, and I believe that's true, that that they now are getting ahead of the wave of this, kids that are falling off the edge, and feeling they have nothing to lose, and needing attention, and they will get it in the way that they can get it, and including what I'm talking about here. So I'm thinking, I should mention the 12 steps in the Ubuntu movement, Ubuntu tribe, or their way of giving love, that how would that be incorporated? I know that you promote Alateen in schools, and it looks like there might be a little bit of a small movement towards that. But and maybe there's something very specific around reminding kids, no matter who they are, how they are in school, how they act, A students or F students, that they all deserve some type of attaboy, attagirl kinds of things that are real and not, that are real, that the people that are offering this you matter love to kids, that they have no doubt about that every child matters, that's something that seems like it should be curriculum. It should be absolute curriculum from kindergarten on up, because of this sad fact. Many children come from homes where they are not recognized and valued and loved the way they need to be. So is it school's job to do that? I say yes. I say yes. If you're there to teach them anything, maybe you can teach them that they're loved no matter what.
Maybe you can teach them the most
How's
important
that for?
thing.
Yes, maybe you can teach them the most important thing. Because all the arithmetic, algebra, geometry, science, et cetera, will not fill their cup. Never.
And
sorry.
if they're told that they are valuable, that they're loved, that the community appreciates them and is grateful for them, then they can bloom into their own blossom, their own unique thing that the school is supposed to groom them for, is this,
creativity.
Yes. What do you have to offer the world?
Right.
Yeah.
We all got something. We're all gifted.
That's right. And we're all gifted in a completely unique way. That nobody else is gifted the way we're gifted, the way I'm gifted, the way you're gifted. It's completely unique. In history also,
Totally.
nobody, there's never been another Pat, and there never will be another Pat. Okay,
well,
so
thank you, Chris.
Right, but that's everybody, right?
Yes,
so we have this one opportunity to bloom into who we are, and that'll never happen again.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting. I know a few children that go to like the Waldorf schools or those types of schools where they allow children to determine their path. They support them as they do that, but they don't box them in, and you can feel their little spirits. Their spirits are maybe it comes out a little fresh. What we might call fresh, but it means that they're not afraid to be fresh. They're not afraid to be, hey, why did you do that? That was kind of no, I think that was kind of dumb, Mom. Whatever, so my point is, yes, the public schools, at least when I grew up, and maybe it's changed, I don't think it's changed much. Now they got all these sort of sports things. They give the kids the sports are great. I'm not saying there's a problem with that, but where is the love? Where is the dang love?
I had a gym teacher in 7th grade, Miss Wadman, and I was going steady with somebody for the first time in 7th grade. And the thing was, they gave you their ID bracelet. That was the big currency, right?
Sure. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And everybody else had a ID bracelet from the person they were going steady with, but I didn't. So I had to find somebody who could give me their. And finally I got the ID bracelet. I mean, I didn't care about the guy at all. I just wanted the freaking ID bracelet so that I could fit into the crowd, right? That was the big,
yeah.
that was the big
Yeah,
thing. It was also the time when my mother was was drinking the most in AA, and I hadn't gotten into Alateen yet. Anyway, so Miss Wadman, I showed her my ID bracelet, and I said, "Is there a safe place I can keep this during gym?" And she let me put it in the drawer, and then take it out of the drawer at the end of gym. And there was this very unspoken, subtle but strong support that she was giving me by acknowledging that it was an important thing and that it had to be put in a safe place. And when we broke up, I felt the empathy. She didn't say anything, but I felt the empathy and the support. And here I am, 60 years later or something, remembering that love, that acceptance, that acknowledgement.
Huge. Imagine all the ways we could do that, all the small and big ways that we can promote you matter. I'm connected with you. I'm connected with you. Because I think that's, the thing that I think that's what we all want. We all want to be recognized and connected. So they call it sense of belonging and meaning and all of those terms. But
So
boy, in these terms,
I don't know if you ever got a chance to talk about how you allow the God's spirit to support you. I mean, I talked about it, but I don't know if you did.
Well, if we're talking, getting sober, I think that's probably the most sort of clear sign that I wasn't on my own anymore. Or I was never on my own. I just turned my back on the spirit, on God. The thing that I started to allow in AA that I hadn't done at all in most of my life, maybe as a young kid, young kid, I might have, but at some point when some stuff happened, as it does to all of us, in our growing years of being outed, by the in group, and then pulling ourselves in and saying it doesn't really matter that much. And then, and in some cases, and in mine, for a short time, I kind of went off with the quote, the bad crowd a little bit, messed around in that, because the bad crowd, quote, the bad crowd, would always welcome a newcomer, because we'll see what we can do, we'll see what we can do with this person. Anyhow, in AA, what started happening is people were friendly to me with no particular agenda. They just were happy to see me, and then mostly everyone would ask your name, you say your name. So the next week you come in and several people say, "Hey, Pat," like, wow. I mean, it was just so amazing. To me, that's spirit, that could happen. Somebody could say, "Hey, Pat," and I could say, yeah, whatever. But it was clear to me that the person was happy to see me. And I was like, what? That's strange. I'm never happy to see me. How come you're happy to see me? Anyhow, so I think those are really relevant ways in which we begin to change and allow, it's an allowing, and I think we've spoken about this before, how big a word allowing is. Was allowing the spirit to manifest through this friendliness of the group, this, and then maybe after the meeting coming over and saying, "Hey, we're going to go for coffee. Would you like to come for coffee?" Would I like to come for coffee? Are you kidding? Sure. I mean, that's wow. It's just, yeah. So to recapture that, something to think about. How do we recapture? How do I capture that sort of inclusiveness that has such meaning to one who feels all alone in the world. Particularly an alcoholic. It's a lonely life. Yeah. Inclusiveness. Wow, that's a biggie.
And you said something that was very moving to me a little while ago. You said allowing the heart to cry.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I think that's it really spoke to me. It really moved me. I think that there's so much wisdom that we can tap into through our crying heart.
Yeah.
And since we're taught in our culture to not cry, there's probably a subtle hesitation that most of us have about allowing that process. But I think that, I mean, when I remember when I was in seminary, I took a course on the Book of Job because, as you know, I love the Book of Job. I don't love all of Scripture at all. I mean, I've actually wrestled with Scripture a lot. But the Book of Job just makes me feel like I've taken the garbage out. He's so eloquent in expressing his pain. And he allows my heart to cry. I can't get through the book without weeping, because he has this intimate relationship with God. At the same time, his life is in shambles, and he expresses it in such a beautiful way, and such an intimate way that I can't get through without crying. And I think that our tears are anything but weak. Our tears have valuable data in them. They have valuable information about who we are, about what speaks to our heart, about what's important to us, about what we need. And allow the crying of the heart. I mean, that's a beautiful, short, concise way of opening the channel so that it can flow freely without the obstacles that the culture gives it. I just thought it was a beautiful thing, and I think I'm really gonna add that to my mantras, one of which is "Show me the way," thanks to Alan. And now allow the heart to cry.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely. I love it. And, a couple of quick things I would add to that is to live unguarded, like I think you might have mentioned that there in what you just said, just the unguardedness, and that crying, we all often denote, I think, crying as down as not a positive, but I think you were just expressing that that's not true, that crying, tears come from love. They don't come from fear, they come from love. And if we could just start, making that shift around that, we could be opening up this channel of energy, of the energy of love. I think holding back tears is like damming up love.
Yes.
So, yeah, I would really like to be less guarded. I know that I'm fairly guarded, particularly in certain situations. Intimate stuff. I'm guarded now. I mean, because I've had some experiences which have landed, and I'm working through them. So yeah. Yeah, and isn't it really, can't you really, when you meet somebody who's not guarded, guarding their heart so tightly and, let me see what this is about before I, get too involved. They're just like, I know my heart is good and I just want you to see it. And yeah, I don't have to worry about it. It'll take care of things. Trusting the heart, gee willikers, instead of trusting fear. So,
I mean,
don't know.
yeah, trusting the heart is, what a gift. What a gift it is to trust the heart. And
Yeah.
what I've come to realize is that when I do have tears, they're just so they're so valuable for my growth, for my self-understanding, for my direction in life. So I can tell maybe I've been going down the wrong route. Um,
Mm.
Maybe the route is contrived and I'm
Mhm.
not really in my true self.
Yeah.
And the stress of that has caused some tears. So
Yeah.
those tears have a very strong and important message in them.
And they should be honored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I try not to inhibit the tears for that reason. I've learned how, um, I think that especially sobbing tears, there is, if I let out the underlying message of sobbing tears, that's a signpost for me.
Mm. Mm.
So that's a go here, not there, Chris.
Right.
You
Right.
need to do this, not that, Chris.
Right.
It's a
Right.
signpost in my life, is those sobbing tears.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful as always,
Yeah.
and a lot to think about, a lot to chew on here, you
I'm
know?
grateful for our time together and for our I think when you have a dear friend, like we have, our friendship is very close, dear friendship. And I think that what happens in that friendship often is that one person will pull out of the other person without even really knowing it. You'll pull stuff out of me, and maybe the same thing happens in reverse.
Absolutely.
And it's a beautiful thing.
It is. I mean, I keep notes. I keep some notes while we're talking here, so I can think about these later. One of the things you said earlier here was with each meal, it could be a time to reflect
Mm.
and slow down and listen for the heart and so forth. So, like you mentioned, discipline is not my strong suit. Um, um, and I think it's because discipline for me does not bring the results as quick as enough as I want them,
Mm.
just not quick enough.
Yeah.
I want to, yeah, come
Fast.
on.
Fast.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's just some, it's probably, I like to always blame the culture for stuff. So I think it's cultural. Like if you don't have results, productivity, something to show for, blah, 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 then, well, what's it worth? Well, it's worth you learning how to let life unfold as life will. What?
Oh,
Anyhow,
amen to that. Letting life
yeah,
unfold as life will.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not again, not my strong suit. Um, um, Learning though, and I would, I'll give myself and of course you credit, or you credit and myself credit for um for being open to having these discussions that sometimes might seem like, oh yeah, so what did they say, and what importance is it? Well, the importance is simply speaking. I believe, truly believe, that we are speaking from a place that isn't um, um, I need to win, or there's an agenda that I've got to complete, or something like that. And if you can just stay away from just those two things, well, then you're speaking in a different language than is the current language of the day.
The language
So
of growth.
Yes, the language of growth. Yeah. Allowing the heart to cry.
Amen.
Yeah. So good to see you, Chris.
So good to see you too. Until our next Holy Compost,
All is well.
namaste.